The NFL meetings in Arizona. We're going to break it all down, press conferences and everything with our NFL Insider Matt Lombardo. It's the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital live on a Wednesday right now.
Let's go! Manchild wanna talk to you. 'Cause Manchild is born, it's always number two. And Boy Green is always on the scene. And what you're always bringing to your live streaming. So get ready, ready. Get ready, 'cause here they come.
All right, welcome aboard, everybody. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital at MC Show Digital. It's a live Wednesday show. And look at him on this beautiful veranda about to join me. Matt Lombardo, our NFL Insider. We are presented today by Northeast Roofing Professionals, NERPCNY.com. We'll hear from Northeast in just a little bit. But while it may be a taste of springtime around here in the Northeast, out in Arizona, they're basking in the sunshine, Matt, as the NFL meetings have been going on all week long, some press conferences and some fun stuff. And we'll talk about some of the happenings there, including Jerry Jones talking about ducks. I can't wait to get to that with you today, Matt. Quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, is a duck, I guess. What is a duck? Jerry coming up with one of those classic Jerry Jones analogies to talk all about it. All right, let's bring him in, our NFL Insider from Between the Hash Marks on Substack. It's the one, the only Matt Lombardo. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Manchild, great to be here. Sorry the background can't be the caverns and the canyons of Arizona at the NFL meetings, but the next best thing. Spring has, in fact, sprung. So here in suburban Philadelphia, we're taking advantage of the nice weather, the fresh air, and getting out of the home office to chat with you and the people here today outside on the veranda.
Yeah, I was telling you when Paul and I launched the channel last July, right? Started this YouTube channel. We moved from radio permanently over to digital. I said, we ought to do, it was nice weather. I said, let's do like on the veranda show, we're having a beer and we're just taking it easy. And that's exactly what we did. We looked very much like you, the beautiful sky behind us and the trees were starting to bloom and it was pretty cool. It was already July, so I guess the trees had leaves on them already, but it was nice. It was really cool to just be outside and be enjoying the fresh air. And I know all of us here in the Northeast, we endure some serious winter stuff. So when spring really finally does arrive, usually isn't, by the way, March 20th or 21st when the date on the calendar is clicked. It's usually more like middle of April, if not early May in some places like good old central New York and Syracuse, where you actually say, okay, now we are officially in spring. So we look forward to those kind of things. And I think that's kind of the benefit of living in four-season weather is that, for some people, you live in Florida, you live in Arizona, it's like it's always spring or summer, right? And it doesn't make it special. But when you come out of the horrific winter that we've had, spring feels kind of nice. It feels like a renewal of sorts. It renews our energy, so to speak.
Yeah, unless you're an NFL reporter trying to fly down to Mobile, Alabama, and those plans get derailed by a blizzard. You're trying to fly to the Combine, and those plans get derailed by a blizzard. Yeah, I think I'd trade 1 season, 2 season weather if I can avoid the travel hiccups of that I had to go through this year because of the Northeast weather. But hey, you know what? That's in the rearview mirror. Free agency, the biggest deals are signed. The draft is barreling down the pike at us now. Inside of a month, Jim, from the NFL draft getting underway, and certainly a lot of interesting storylines developing across the league this week and in recent weeks as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, let's talk about some of the things you've written about this week, Matt, because you've really written about a couple of really intriguing, tasty things, we might say, including your latest article about GMs, whose jobs could hinge on the 2026 NFL draft, and how fascinating it was to me when I read your piece on Substack that the Giants GM was on that list. The Jets GM was on that list. The Bills GM was on that list. The 3 teams essentially that we cover in depth on this channel. So let's pick it apart one at a time, Matt. Let's start with Boy Green's Jets since he's not here. I'll represent for him today. Darren Mougey, give me your thoughts about how his job potentially could hinge on this draft. The one thing we do know about this draft when it comes to the Jets is they do have a lot of draft picks, and so there's a lot of chances to hit And I guess there's a lot of chances to swing and miss. What's Mougey going to do?
Yeah, the premise is that there are varying degrees of pressure, right? Like Howie Roseman is on this list because it's about keeping a Super Bowl window propped open amid a talent drain. For the Jets, it's a little bit different because you're just beginning a rebuild and you've decided to punt on the quarterback to next year, which is going to be a very deep quarterback class in 2027. But you need to, during this draft, when you have 2 first-round picks, and I believe it's 4 selections in the top 44 of this upcoming draft, you need to ensure that you have that turnkey offense and a roster that has more blue chip talent that develops than it had before the draft for that next quarterback to walk into. And it's not exactly a pristine draft and develop record in Florham Park. So to me, as an outsider looking at the Jets situation, you need to hit on especially those early draft picks. You need to get the right pass rusher. It's a great pass rush draft. You need the right one to build your defense around. I would say with that second pick in the first round, go and get the best receiver on the board, whether it's Carnell Tate, whether it's Jordan Tyson, whoever that receiver is, get him to pair opposite Garrett Wilson. You have a functioning wide receiving core for your quarterback to walk into, and then just start taking the best available player on the board regardless of need, because you have so many holes, you have so many needs. You've done a nice job in free agency of elevating the talent level at a lot of key positions. Now it's about elevating the ceiling even higher and setting yourself up so that next year when you do draft that quarterback and you have 3 total first-round picks, that you're taking next step rather than taking the first step. So to me, Mougey needs to hit home run after home run after home run in the early rounds of this draft so that this team shows meaningful progress, that he can be here next year to take the franchise quarterback, and he can set up a situation for that quarterback to succeed immediately.
Yeah, I think you kind of just hit on it a little bit, and I was going to go this way. Let me bring over the comments, too. Tony, the GM, was essentially thinking exactly with me. He's saying this isn't a make-or-break draft for the Jets necessarily because they have these 2 drafts because they have piled picks up for the last 2 years, which I totally agree with Tony on. And then the second part of this is he says, and this is a draft where you don't want to draft the wrong QB and destroy your rebuild. So 2 great points here. Tony, thanks for chiming in on that. You're reading my mind here. Talk about that, Matt. Does Mougey, I mean, I think you just kind of answered the question a little bit. Does Mougey really have 2 drafts to build on or not build on here? And I think one of the worries here for me is that will he? Because if the Jets flop again this year like they did last year, chances are that the coach is gone. And if the coach is gone, is the GM hanging around? I don't know. If it's another bad record and those players don't look great, but the coach just doesn't know how to coach them, I don't see how the GM survives either. Plus, of course, you always have the GM coach thing. It's better to swap those things out together. So all of those complicate, dare I say, this muddled mess that is, right now, the New York Football Jets. Talk about those 2 questions, though, that Tony raised. I think they're really good ones.
Yeah, I think that this draft represents Darren Mougey's chance to finish the job and see it through, right? Because if you take Shamar Stewart, look at what happened with the Bengals last year. That never quite panned out. I know there were some injuries there. Or you take Evan Neal, that type of a player, that type of a bust with one of these 2 first-round picks, or your early-round picks don't pan out. I don't know that Woody Johnson, given that he's not the most notorious owner in sports, given how last year went with Aaron Glenn, whom this general manager hired, I don't know that if you don't make meaningful progress coming out of this year's draft with players that show immediate progress, I don't know that you get to make those 3 first-round picks. I don't know that you get to make the pick of the franchise quarterback and decide between Arch Manning or whoever the next top quarterback is in next year's class. I think that this year is the set the foundation year for Darren Mougey to have the chance to build the house. That's how I'm looking at this from a Jets perspective, because if this flops, if this goes belly up, I don't know how you justify bringing him back next year when you have so much at stake next season to go get your quarterback. I said this on Boyd Green's Sunday show this past week, Jim. I think the Jets need to take a quarterback at some point during this draft, but I think you're looking at a round 3 or a round 4 quarterback, a Drew Aller, a Carson Beck, one of those type of quarterbacks who you're developing behind the scenes, because you could fall into a Tyler Shuck situation with the New Orleans Saints, where you don't need to take a quarterback number 5 overall next year, because your young quarterback you took this year shows enough promise that he can be the guy, and you suddenly have 3 first-round picks to build around, right? And if it doesn't work out, you can say, okay, I have this young developmental quarterback over here in this hand. I'll go take my franchise quarterback over here, but I have 2 serviceable young quarterbacks, and maybe 2 years down the line, I can flip the kid that I drafted this year for a draft pick to continue building. So I think you take a quarterback, but you're not taking the quarterback in this year's draft.
All right. Well, the cat's away. The mice will play. Boy Green. I don't know if you see him there, Matt, chiming in on the in the comments. Can't be here physically, so he's going to be here mentally. Saying, of course, the question is, can he make it to the 2027 draft, Mougey, if he flops in 2026? Exactly what we were kind of hitting. And he liked your plug there, Matt. He says, thanks for plugging Boy Green. A daily New York Jets video show, award-winning program right there. I don't know if it's won any awards yet, but perhaps it will someday. Thank you, Boy Green, for your comments as well. All right, so we know kind of Mougey's status. Let's shift here to my GM, Joe Schoen, who is the GM or isn't he? I mean, he says it's still his job, but I'm not sure I believe him. And everything we've been hearing so far from John Harbaugh, including comments at this week's Combine, are Joe Schoen's doing a great job. Joe Schoen's doing his homework. Joe Schoen's part of a great team. We got Donna Ponte over here, too. We're building a whole new thing. Life is good. There's great harmony if you listen to what John Harbaugh is saying at every press conference he's had a chance to speak here along the way in his very brief tenure as the Giants head coach. Are you buying it, Matt Lombardo? And how, really, I think the question for most Giant fans is, does Joe Schoen have true influence in this draft? Is Joe Schoen, where is he in the pecking order in terms of who makes the pick? Who's the one that says, okay, listen to all the input, we're going to go this way, and goes? Give me your thoughts on that.
A lot to dive into here, right? But as far as the pecking order goes, John Harbaugh is here. Joe Schoen is here. They each report to John Mara. This isn't a situation where the general manager, Joe Schoen over here, reports to the general manager and to the owner, and the head coach reports to the GM. They are on a level playing field, right? So you look at the Giants, and I've spoken to multiple people inside the league who have some serious optimism that they're going to make a big leap forward this year, and the Giants have enough young pieces to perhaps just be opening a window. But it's not because of Joe Schoen. The people that I talk to, there is a healthy amount of respect, a healthy amount of optimism about the impact that Donna Ponte is making on that entire organization, coming in as the director of football operations and strategy. She's the one effectively running the show alongside John Harbaugh. And when you talk to people, the organization has been restructured to the point where Joe Schoen is basically overseeing the scouting department. He's in the scouting wing. He's scouting the draft. This is now his purpose. Scout the draft, run the draft, those sort of things. I don't know who has exactly final say in the war room. I would hazard a guess it's probably more of a collaborative effort. And if there are any debates, I'm guessing John Harbaugh probably has a healthy amount of influence and a strong voice in terms of who they actually pick. But this is why I think it's make or break for Joe Schoen. If this is now what you are doing, if you are now overseeing the scouting department and you whiff at number 5, or you don't come away with 2 or 3 immediate impact starters in the mold of a Cam Scatterbo, in the mold of a Dexter Lawrence, in the mold of a Jackson Dart type of player with those type of ceilings, then how do the Giants justify bringing him back in that capacity next year, right? So I think that if Schoen knocks this out of the park, he's in a contract year. Let's remember that, too. If they knock this out of the park and they emerge with Caleb Downs, or if somehow they wind up having Sonny Styles fall to them and you can drop him in the middle of that defense, that's going to be great, and it's a great foundation. But if you whiff and you're already knocked down a peg from where you were on the organizational flow chart and power structure, it's going to be difficult for him to come back next year. So if I were looking at this entire draft and this entire league, I'd argue there might be more pressure on Joe Schoen than any general manager just because of what it means to him personally in this new role and how close the Giants are to taking that next step. We can talk about the Jets rebuild. We can talk about other teams that are rebuilding at the top of this year's draft, the Arizona Cardinals hitting the reset button this offseason, all of those things. But when you're close, when you're on the cusp, I think that if you can knock it out of the park with elite prospects who become impact players, that's where I think the money is made in the NFL, and that's where I think the pressure hinges on Joe Schoen.
All right. I think I agree with your assessment there, Matt. And the other New York team. Now, this is interesting with Brandon Beane because maybe I'd categorize it this way, Matt, that Brandon Beane, I think his job is to a certain extent on the line here this season, but it may just be an entire offseason of moves for him, not necessarily the draft and the draft alone. Let's face it, the Bills, number one, are not picking all that high because they've been a very good team. And so you just don't get the same kind of assets in those positions that some of the teams that we've talked about in the Jets and the Giants should be getting with all of the picks that they have. So give me your thoughts about Brandon Beane's tenuous position, if indeed it is somewhat tenuous, because I know you mentioned him in your piece as well.
Yeah, I'm stunned that he's still there, quite frankly, because I thought it was a half measure by owner Terry Pacula to fire head coach Sean McDermott and then bring Brandon Beane back off of how last year ended, after how these draft picks along the front seven, other than maybe Ed Oliver, have really failed to develop and take that next step. After the fact that you look at the complete mess of a couple of years ago where they traded back a couple of times to select Keon Coleman in the second round, but it allowed the Chiefs to go and get Xavier Worthy at the back end of the first round. The fact that they've never really assembled an elite wide receiving core around Josh Allen to elevate his ceiling, to capitalize on the prime of his career into a Super Bowl. It's now or never. It really feels like, especially watching what the Patriots are building, what they've already done, the trajectory that they are on around Drake May and the pieces they've added over the last two off seasons, the pressure's on more than ever on Brandon Beane to get it done. You need to, in my opinion, go get an impact linebacker early. Go fix that defensive line. Go get some interior line help to keep Josh Allen upright. And I'd say sometime in the first three rounds, go get a wide receiver. It's a really strong wide receiver class, but based on what we've seen from that offense the last several years, I don't know that trading a second-round pick for DJ Moore is enough. So you've traded away a second-round pick to begin with. You're a little bit shorthanded. It ramps up the pressure on getting the rest of those draft picks right. And I just look at Brandon Beane's situation. If you're going to wipe out the head coach after another disappointing one and done last year, if you don't make meaningful progress this year, I'm talking AFC Championship game at a minimum, and your draft picks don't hit and your free agency acquisitions go bust, Josh Allen's not getting any younger. And I think that if it isn't meaningful progress in Orchard Park, you could be looking at Terry Pagula finishing the job and hiring a new GM this next offseason.
Yeah. And I know the Bills' cap situation isn't a great one because, of course, like a lot of teams, they're paying the quarterback, okay? They have the quarterback, and they are now paying the quarterback mega bucks, which he deserves, by the way, every penny of it. But it makes things more complicated. I mean, I liked the DJ Moore move, except it's just not enough. Like, they just haven't done enough. And I'm curious why it just doesn't feel, and maybe it's just a financial money thing, like they're out there chasing like a Juwan Jennings, who might be arguably maybe the top wide receiver currently, NFL guy anyway in the free agency market. Why aren't they chasing, hard charging a guy like that and trying to at least pair up more with another guy and then Khalil Shakir as a third wheel? And now it feels like you have something a little bit more, I don't know if the Bills are thinking, do you think they're thinking, Matt, that they might fulfill that need in the draft? I mean, they flopped on Keon Coleman. Are they going to get it right this time if they decide to go wide receiver in the draft? So give me your thoughts about that situation in particular with the Bills, because I think it's a fascinating one that could make or break their season. They just need for that offense to just be more than it has been.
I agree. I think they need to get Josh Allen another weapon. And I think that when you talk to people inside the league, there is a lot of optimism about this wide receiver class. That's one of the few positions where it's relatively deep, that you can get a contributor in round 2, round 3. It's not a great draft class overall. There's not a lot of high-end talent, but wide receiver is one of those spots where you can get an immediate starter. I prioritize getting a weapon pretty early if I were them. But I'm with you. I just don't know that DJ Moore is quite enough. And it's not just about adding a weapon offensively. You look at what happened last year in the playoff loss and the defense buckling late. You look at what happened in a couple of those losses, games that were closer than they should have been. They need to get that defense right, and they need to get the pass rush figured out. That's another area. You might need to take a pass rusher in the first round rather than allocating it to a weapon for Josh Allen. I think they sneakily have a lot of needs. But Josh Allen's the equalizer, right? So when you have Josh Allen, you're going to be in the mix. They just need to build around him and upgrade around him to try to close the gap that's now opened a bit with the Patriots and take that next step towards bringing a Super Bowl back to Orchard Park.
Talk with Matt Lombardo, our NFL Insider, between the hash marks on Substack. Don't forget, it is the Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital at MC Show Digital. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It's youtube.com/at MC Show Digital. We are presented today by our friends at Northeast Roofing Professionals. Matt, let's take 30 seconds. I hear the lawnmowers going off in the background. I always love that. It just makes the outdoor experience just that much better. And then we will come back. We've got some more NFL news, including, I want to ask Matt about this possibility of an 18-game schedule. Is it going to happen in the NFL? We'll discuss when we return. Stick around. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. More coming up right after this.
Finding the right local roofing company can be tricky. You don't want to hire the wrong roofers, or you could end up spending a fortune on repairs. The pros at Northeast Roofing Professionals can ensure your home is protected by a strong and sturdy roof. Locally owned and operated, over 30 years experience, free estimates, and competitively priced. Don't settle for an inexperienced roofing contractor. Turn to Northeast Roofing Professionals. Discounts for military and first responders. Reach out and let them put a sturdy roof over your head. NERPCNY.com. NERPCNY.com.
All right, we are back. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. I'm with Matt Lombardo, our NFL Insider. Hey, Matt, you much of a college basketball fan at all?
I only have so much sports bandwidth, and college basketball kind of. I used to love it. I used to live for March. I was the kid in high school who I ran the bracket pool out of my locker. I had the manila envelope with everybody's brackets and eventually the cash, the semi-illegal gambling before gambling was legalized. But, in my more mature state, my fatherhood state, my NFL reporting state, I don't have as much time and as much sports bandwidth to follow the tournament as closely as I once did.
I wasn't going to ask you about the tournament anyway. I'm just curious whether you're a college basketball fan. Did you, when you were a kid, since you brought this up, you've moved me off to another tangent here. Did you, are you old enough where the football sheets were out in Philadelphia? Did you ever fill out a football sheet? Do you know what I'm even talking about?
Are you talking about the old parlay sheets that you
yes, there you go, the parlay sheets. Yes, that's exactly.
When I graduated college, I briefly lived about a mile east of Delaware Park Racetrack, and they were one of the first places outside of Las Vegas that had sports books, but you could only do the parlays. So I would drive over there a couple Sundays a year, fill out my parlay sheet, watch the games at Delaware Park, maybe bet the ponies for at halftime of one of the games. So I remember the sheets pretty well. Yeah.
Now, when I was a kid, there was at every workplace essentially, and in every neighborhood, a guy who was the sheet guy. All right. And during the week, during football season, you knew to go to that guy to get your sheet. It was just this little long strip of paper, all right, vertical strip of paper, smaller than this pad, like half of this pad, all right, and it had all the NFL games with the spreads. And then if you picked, I think you had to pick at least a 4-leg parlay, okay, and 4-leg parlays always play 10-1, all right. And then it would go up if you went 5, 6, 7, or even beyond, right? And you were just picking games. They had the college games at the top, the pro games at the bottom, and you could pick as many games as you wanted, and you could put as much money on it, and you would get whatever the odds were. And you literally physically circle it on the sheet, write your numbers on the little attachment, call it a little chit at the bottom. All right, here's my picks. And then you'd hand in the chit and you'd keep the actual sheet, and then you'd watch the games on Sunday and see if you won or lost. That was the way you gambled back in the day. And it was a neighborhood guy or guy in your office in every little niche in town. That was the way it was done when I was a kid. It was
or your high school.
I miss stuff like that, man. It's just, that kind of cool thing. Now we can just go on a phone on our app and do whatever the heck we want, and instantly be pulling money out of bank accounts and doing crazy stuff. You had to have cash. You had to hand it to the guy to get to get your sheet. It was fantastic. I loved it. All right. Anyway, back to the old days. The reason I was bringing up college basketball, Matt, is we're doing a raffle right now. You see that little scrolling ticker down below on our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing these monthly for different items. So we have 2 items that are in this month's raffle. The first one is college basketball, the cover of Sports Illustrated from 2003, the year that Syracuse won the national championship. Yes, that is, Matt, in case you can't see it, a very young Carmelo Anthony right there. All right, playing against Kansas in the championship game. Syracuse, of course, won its only national championship that year. It's a beautiful magazine. You can see it's in pristine condition, Matt. This thing is beautiful. I've kept it hermetically sealed, so to speak. All right. So we're giving away that. And, Matt, I don't know if you're much of a music fan. This is a Dan Aykroyd from the Blues Brothers autographed harmonica case and harmonica. There's a harmonica inside this case. And Dan Aykroyd has indeed signed this harmonica as well. So it is a Dan Aykroyd signed harmonica and harmonica case, Sousa harmonica. All right. And proof's in the pudding, Matt. I did indeed meet Dan Aykroyd, and he did indeed sign this harmonica. I have pictures of it to prove it. So there's your certificate.
That's tremendous.
Authenticity. So these are just a couple items that I've had for a while, and I said, you know what, I want to do some things to promote membership on the channel. So here's how you get in the raffle. You can see our leaderboard below with several people who have already contributed. Number one, you just sign up for a membership. So you have to subscribe to our channel in order to join and become a member. Our lowest level of membership is $4.99. It's called the 12th Manchild. All right, you see the insignia on my sleeve right here. That's the 12th MC, or I have it on my coffee mug. Easy to hold the coffee mug. That's a beautiful logo for the 12th Manchild, the 12th MC, and that is our lowest membership level. Just for doing that, you get 2 raffle tickets. So if you're not already a member and you become a member, 2 raffle tickets right away. You got a chance to win those 2 items. We're going to do the drawings on the 22nd of every month because that's my favorite number, Matt, is 22. It's been a long, special number for me. So we're always going to start the raffle soon after the 22nd, and we always will draw the next month on the 22nd. So we will draw these on April the 22nd. And someone will win those 2 items, and then we will ship them out to them. So you can do membership. You can gift memberships. If you gift 5 or more memberships, you get 20 raffle tickets. So you can really go right to the top of the leaderboard. And if you do super chats or super stickers worth $3 a piece, every $3 you contribute to a super chat or super sticker will indeed go to a singular raffle ticket. So do as many of those as you want. So you're always, of course, folks, welcome to do that during the show. And by doing that, not only are you getting in the raffle, but you're also supporting the channel with me and Paul. So we appreciate anybody's generosity. So I'll leave the leaderboard there running below, Matt, but some cool prizes this month, some unique prizes, you might say, 2 very, very different items. So that's how people get in.
Awesome.
All right. Anyway, let's talk NFL 18-game schedules, Matt. And before I get into the discussion, I mentioned that Jerry Jones soundbite today. Jerry Jones said, and I quote, "When the ducks quack, you feed them," referring to the 18-game schedule. So perfect Jerry analogy that essentially, that the fans are quacking. I guess the fans are the ducks, and when the ducks quack, you feed them, all right? Which is exactly why, to no surprise, Matt, the owners want another game because it's more quack, okay, more money, okay, more ducats, okay, if I'm to put a duck analogy around this whole thing, all right? And the players at this particular point are against it because CTE, physical wear and tear, so on and so forth. How much more can the players take in an NFL season where we'll eventually have to say, we got to stop this thing? But I've always thought, Matt, now that we landed on the odd, weird number of 17, that we were bound at some point to get to 18, and I truly believe we will. But give me your take on this whole thing, what Jerry Jones had to say. Take it any way you want.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that it moves to an 18-game schedule, but I think that the framework is a lot closer to what Robert Kraft mentioned this week at the owners' meetings, where every team gets a second bye week. You eliminate the preseason from 3 games down to 2 exhibition games, and every team plays 1 international game every year. I think that that's the sweet spot for the league, right? It's a lot easier for the NFL to play 1 international game every single week, scheduled so every team is over across the pond or wherever they want to play these international games one time. You schedule the bye week after the second bye week after that international game appearance. And it's a lot easier to do that than it is to plant a team or a division in Europe or in Barcelona or in Mexico City or wherever it might be. You just send teams over there every year. The problem is going to come in. What are the concessions from the league side of things to the players? Because I think the players are rightfully against this because all of the things you mentioned, increased injury risk, the CTE factor, the wear and tear on the body. And from an NFLPA standpoint, when you're eliminating one of the preseason games, you're eliminating one opportunity for a bottom of the roster player to make his case to be on the roster. So whether that's expanding rosters from 53 to 65, whether it's expanding the practice squad, maybe adding 5 practice squad roster spots, and maybe even a bigger piece of the revenue pie, because it's no coincidence that this schedule talk to 18 games is coinciding with the NFL's TV rights fees that are slated to end in 2030, but the league can start renegotiating as early as, I believe, 2028. We're going to see an infusion of billions of dollars in new television money into the league's coffers, just as you're looking to expand the season, which means more inventory for them to sell a Netflix or an Apple TV or an Amazon Prime, in addition to their current cable and broadcast partners. So there are going to have to be a lot of really fascinating negotiations between the league and the NFLPA. I don't think the NFLPA should buckle without getting something meaningful out of this. Larger rosters, bigger piece of the revenue pie, higher salary cap. But I do think the league is going to push to the point where 18 games becomes inevitable. I think it's a better product for the fans, but it's certainly a more difficult schedule and daunting task for the players.
Matt, here's one from the comments here from one of our Hall of Fame member, Jamie the FedEx guy, a.k.a. Jamie O'Hara, says, do my Bears go heavy D in the draft, in your opinion, Matt? Any updates also on their future home? Because there are obviously some thoughts about whether the Bears are going to get themselves a new stadium. So anything on that? And what do you think about the Bears in terms of what they might do in this draft?
Yeah, I'll start with the second part of the question first. I don't have any insight on where this is going to end, but just my 30,000-foot view read of the situation. The longer this drags on, the longer that they're not the Indiana Bears, the longer that they're not the Arlington Heights Bears, the better the chances are that Kevin Warren, the president and CEO of the Bears, and the city of Chicago, and Governor J.B. Pritzker can reach some sort of accord on keeping the team in Chicago, whether that's completely remodeling Soldier Field again and building a complete entertainment and residential and commercial complex around a renovated Soldier Field, or a new stadium entirely. The longer this drags on, the better I feel about Chicago keeping the Bears, because the Browns didn't waste any time up and leaving Cleveland, right? That deal got done like that. The fact that these negotiations are still ongoing, I think there's still hope that the Bears stay in Chicago, as they should. Now, as far as what they do in the draft, I think it's a foregone conclusion that they're going to go defense heavy. They weren't able to land an elite pass rusher in free agency. It's a very deep pass rush class. I'd probably take an edge rusher in the first round if I were them. I love what they did, at safety. I think that bringing Kobe Bryant in there has the chance to be one of the more impactful moves that any team has made in free agency this offseason. They've made some nice moves on defense, but they have to get better. You lost Jaquan Brisker to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You lost Kevin Byard to, I believe, the New England Patriots, who were reunited with Mike Vrabel. You've lost some big pieces to a defense that really relied on creating takeaways more than anything else. I think defense is the obvious move. I like a lot of what Ryan Poles has already done. Now it's time to go get better.
Now, let me go to your neck of the woods here, Matt, for a moment, because there's been a couple of interesting things shaken in Philadelphia. A report this morning from Jeremy Fowler about Jalen Hurts declining some changes in the offense allegedly last season to make it more diverse, and changing plays excessively, more than normal quarterbacks change. Again, there's some speculation around this, but this is the report. All right. And whether or not it's truly a make or break year for Jalen Hurts, who now again has a new offensive coordinator. This time it'll be Sean Mannion. So how's this whole thing in the blender going to work in Philadelphia? And how vital a season is this for your quarterback, Jalen Hurts?
I think it's hugely vital for Jalen Hurts. It's hugely vital for Nick Sirianni, and it's hugely vital in terms of the trajectory of the franchise. I still think there's a more likely chance that A.J. Brown gets traded somewhere like the New England Patriots post-June 1 than there is that A.J. Brown is on this roster come week 1. And from a Jalen Hurts standpoint, you've heard these whispers and these rumblings that the Eagles could target a quarterback in round 2 or round 3 to kind of develop and push Jalen Hurts in the same way that they took Jalen Hurts in the second round to push and motivate a Carson Wentz. this is the same playbook the Eagles ran when they acquired Hurts in the first place. I don't get the vibe that in that building things are completely hunky-dory. I don't get the vibe that everyone on that offense is on the same page, that Nick Sirianni has a complete control over that locker room based on how last season ended. So, yeah, I think anything is possible when it comes to Jalen Hurts, and I think it's a make-or-break year for him and for this offense, because if they don't show meaningful progress, if they don't show meaningful steps towards getting back to a Super Bowl with everything the Eagles have invested in a veteran roster that isn't getting any younger, I could see if this thing falls flat, falls short, if the offense takes another step back, it could be some really uncomfortable conversations in South Philadelphia come January or February next year.
Matt, just the draft in general. I mean, we're less than a month away now. How impactful do you think this year's draft will be? How does it rate among drafts, if there's even a way to really rate drafts against drafts? Give me your thoughts about how excited we should or shouldn't be about the 2026 version of the NFL draft.
Yeah, personally, I have no juice. I have no juice about this draft class. I think that there are, I mean, you look at Kenyon Sadiq, you look at Sonny Styles, you look at, obviously, Jeremiah Love, the number one player overall on my board, Arvell Reese, some great names at the top 10 or so picks in this year's draft. But beyond that, it might be the worst draft in a decade. It might be the worst draft since the lockout year in 2011. I just don't see depth in this year's class. The quarterback situation is it is what it is. It's a one quarterback class. That's why you had all this manufactured Ty Simpson hype last week, where there was a chance that he could go in the first round. There was this groundswell of speculation the Jets could take him at number 16. And I pick up the phone and call a former general manager who's a front office exec for a team today and told me that, he's a third round talent, that any other year you're talking about him as a developmental prospect, but there's just no quarterback depth in this year's class. So somebody has to get pushed up the board. I just don't look at this class as one that's going to move the needle for most teams across the league, whether that's because of the NIL and kids staying in college longer, whether it's because of quarterbacks moving around from situation to situation, program to program in college, so you don't have a strong feel for what they are. They don't have the chance to develop within a scheme consistently. It just seems like this draft is not, it doesn't have the juice of past years and that I think future years will have 1 and 2 years down the line, where it could be a lot more exciting and a lot deeper.
Yeah. Okay, Matt. All right. A lot of picks for our teams, man. We need this draft to be good, but it may not be one of those premier drafts. But hopefully, both the Giants and the Jets get some premier players out of this draft, because these rosters could certainly use some help. Matt, always great to have you. If you want anything to plug on your Substack, please take a moment to do that before you go.
Yeah, come check us out on Substack. It's mattlombardo.nfl.substack.com. This week's Four Downs column is absolutely loaded. I sat down with Zaire Franklin, Syracuse's own, on Sunday for the Between the Hashmarks podcast, profiled him in Monday's Four Downs column. Today we have the column that we spoke about, and on Monday it'll be my big board, my top 10 offensive prospects with insight from coaches and scouts on the biggest offensive prospects, the top names to watch in this year's draft. So make sure you subscribe, get in the huddle before Monday to have that delivered to your inbox before you wake up Monday morning. And of course, the Between the Hashmarks podcast returns next week as well.
Hey, by the way, Matt, before you go, you reminded me of one other question I had about Zaire Franklin, the former Syracuse guy, because he was a captain here in Syracuse, a very, very popular player. And we have a lot of Central New York subscribers to our channel, because obviously that's where we do our show from. And we did a radio show here for over 23 years. What a nice, I don't even want to call him a young man anymore. He's a man. Okay. What a nice man. He used to be a young man. All right. I was about to say that. I'm stopping myself. What a nice man and a great representative for any organization. What was your experience like with him? Because I can't imagine it was anything different. He's a very well-spoken guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite people in the entire league. This is probably the third different time that I've had him on one of my podcasts, any of my incarnations, whether it was the Matt Lombardo show over when I was at Heavy Sports, a podcast before that, and now on the Between the Hashmarks podcast interview on Sunday. Just a great guy, down to earth, Really forthcoming in terms of the insight that he gives you within the conversation. He's a Philly kid, born and raised, so him and I have bonded over that. We have a cheesesteak outing set up now for him and I before training camp gets underway. We're gonna hit up Del Rossi's, which just got a Michelin star here about a month ago in Philadelphia, and he has a flag football event for one of his charities coming up in July. Going to take my 7-year-old daughter. We're going to go down, check out the flag football tournament, meet up with him afterwards. So always gracious with his time, always forthcoming. Like I said, one of my favorite people to deal with in the entire league, on top of being a hell of a player.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Matt, great. He's a good dude. So that's cool. And when you do see him for the little cheesesteak outing, make sure you tell him the folks here in Central New York and our show say hello, because he is one of the real good guys. Somebody I really, really root for in this league. I'm very, very excited. Right, he's with the Packers now, right? So very, very excited to see him get a chance there. But he is a stellar representative of a team. He was like that here in Syracuse. He was always a gentleman, always a great interview. And I think, like you said, a very, very insightful guy. So that's a good guy to be attached to, Matt. And I'm glad to hear that he's one of your favorite players in the league, because he's one of my favorite players as well. Thank you, Matt Lombardo. We'll talk to you again next week, my friend.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a great holiday.
All right, there goes Matt Lombardo talking all things NFL, our NFL Insider Manchild show with Boy Green Digital at MC Show Digital. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel here. I'll throw up the link here so you don't even have to think about it. All right. If you are watching on one of the other portals, this is where you go to youtube.com/@MC Show Digital. Of course, hit that like button over here. That gets more people seeing our videos, including our live broadcasts. And also don't forget to subscribe. It's absolutely free. No obligation there. Super easy. And if you are already a subscriber, of course, you can look at that scrolling ticker below where you can get in this month's raffle now by doing super chats, super stickers, or buying memberships for others. And if you are a subscriber and you're not a member yet, just by becoming a member, you automatically get 2 tickets at the lowest level of our membership for our upcoming raffle. You can increase that to 10 tickets by becoming a diehard member, which is level 2. You can get 10 tickets if you become a Hall of Fame member. We now have 2 Hall of Fame members, so we got a couple. We've inducted 2, dare I say, into our personal Hall of Fame, which is kind of cool. And you get, of course, all kinds of perks as you go up the ladder. And the higher you go up the ladder, you get all the perks from the lower level, plus the additional perks that you get at the higher levels. And Hall of Fame level now, you will become an instant member to our fantasy football digital league, which we are going to start this upcoming season. And we're going to have like a WWE championship belt as the trophy. So I'm going to work on getting that for the league and display it. And you'll be able to, sport that around town and take some photos if indeed you can find a way to win this league, which of course is likely to be a very competitive league. So if you can contribute at that level and you want to be part of our fantasy football situation in the fall, then become a Hall of Fame member today and get yourself 10 free raffle tickets, man. It's an awesome way to participate. And as a Hall of Fame member, if you renew your membership each month, you keep getting 10 additional raffle tickets every month for whatever raffle we have going on. And again, just to review the prizes again, this month, a Dan Aykroyd autographed harmonica. This is the case. And then the harmonica inside the case as well is autographed. And you're getting this beautiful Sports Illustrated 2003 with Carmelo Anthony on the cover. That was the year that obviously Syracuse won the national championship, their only national championship in basketball under Jim Boeheim in that year. And a phenomenal collector's item that you could certainly put in a frame and even get autographed if you are a diehard Syracuse fan. What a cool collector's item that is to have. So those are right out of my personal collection, and all you have to do is get in on the raffle. We will draw the raffle prize, as the scrolling ticker says below, on the 22nd of the month. So that will come on April 22nd. We'll do the drawing. And then the next live show we have after April 22nd, I don't know what day of the week it is. Let me see. I'll take a look at the calendar here real quick. Oh, beautiful. April 22nd is a Wednesday. All right. So 3 weeks from today, Wednesday, we will be on the air here doing a live show, and we will draw that winner probably right before we start that show and announce it on that show on Wednesday, the 22nd. So, hey, the dates are all aligning. The stars are all aligning. See, that's the whole thing with this 22 and me. It's just like a kind of a crazy, weird thing that the Manchild has, where like 22 just keeps popping into my life and I can't get rid of it. And it's just And Boy Green is saying here, thanks, Boy Green. Boy Green is jumping in. Wednesday, the day before the NFL draft, right? So that drawing will be the day before the NFL draft. So I assume, Boy Green, you might be on the road that day. I might be doing a Manchild show with Boy Green digital, or you might be like operating from a car or something. I don't know what you're going to be up to that day. Or maybe you're going to do the show and then hit the road. I'm not quite sure what you're up to that day. So very, very cool stuff there. Hep, thanks for saying hello. Hey, fellers. Hey, fellers. I always love the fellers thing that Hep rolls out there. So, Hep, thanks for coming on board as well. It is the Manchild here, sans Boy Green. Boy Green is working today at another gig, and so he is, as you saw, chiming from time to time there in the comments. Boy Green asked me this question. I'll just jump over to it out of the comments. He said, hey, Manchild, what's your best Zaire Franklin story from Syracuse? I don't know. I don't really have, it's funny. So many players over the years, I have a little story. I have a little personal interaction. I have some like unique thing, for me with Zaire Franklin, I don't have that, parenthetical or that one little story, that one little nugget. My experience with Zaire Franklin was just a good, solid guy. Great guy to talk to, answers your questions, very good gentleman, great leader, exudes leadership, exudes intelligence, exudes understanding of the game. I don't know. When I think Zaire Franklin, while I don't have that quintessential story, I just think like just a great representative. Like he's in a lot of ways like what I felt before the Giants got stupid and let him go, what Saquon Barkley kind of represented for the Giants. Like he's just a good, solid dude. And you want him in your locker room. In your locker room, he's saying the right things. On the practice field, he's setting the right example. On the field of play during games, he's doing his job. That's Zaire Franklin. And he has, I think, much to the surprise of many, not me, but much to the surprise of many, he has had a nice, long NFL career, and it is now continuing with the Green Bay Packers. I don't even, frankly, understand why he keeps going from team to team. I mean, I just think he's a good, solid guy. I'd want him in my, in my locker room, until he couldn't play anymore. But he has moved a couple of times. But he's a good dude. Good dude. Wish him nothing but well. And that's awesome to hear that Matt Lombardo. I saw he wrote that piece about his interview with Zaire on his podcast. And I was like, wow, this is, that's a good dude. And then I didn't even put two and two together and realize that's right. Zaire's from Philadelphia. That makes sense. That's someone like Matt who operates. That's his home base down there in Philadelphia, sitting out there on the veranda today. That's Zaire Franklin country. Syracuse isn't the only place that's Zaire Franklin country. Original Zaire Franklin country is actually down in the Philadelphia area. So that's cool. And Zaire's a good guy. So that's cool. So you got that. Jamie, I don't know why I put your comments up on the board sometimes, but I'll do it anyway. I'm hungry. When's my dinner coming? All you have to do is make yourself free for a date. You work your whole damn life. You're never available. And then you keep putting pressure on me to have dinner. I owe Jamie a dinner. Okay. All cards on the table here, folks. I owe Jamie a dinner from a bet. Okay. I doubled down. I've paid off half the bet, but I still owe half the bet. And the other half of the bet that I owe is I got to get him a dinner. And Boy Green, by the way, is trying to glom onto that dinner and get involved in it, and he's not going to. All right. But you say the date, Jamie, and I'll be there. Okay. You say the date. You've changed the venue on me like 5 times. Okay. First you wanted to do the Brazilian steakhouse in the mall. And I told him we could do that. Then we were going to do, Longhorn Steakhouse. And he was going to do that. And he couldn't do that. Now he threw another idea at me last week. Jamie, all I say to you is you want your dinner, make up your bleeping mind, give me a damn date that you're available. I'll clear out my schedule and we'll get this damn thing over with, man, because this is going to be the worst dinner date in the history of mankind if it goes on any longer. Lord, good grief. All right. I need a quick break. We'll come back, and then I've got a couple of other news and notes I want to get to before I say goodbye today. So we'll step aside, quick timeout here. Our friends at Box Drop Syracuse, and then we are back for a couple other cool news and notes before we say goodbye. Stick around. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital right here.
Considering that we sleep nearly 1/3 of our lives, buying the right mattress is essential. At Box Drop Syracuse Mattress and Sofa Outlet, you'll get a unique experience, one that saves you 30 to 70% off retail prices on top-of-the-line mattresses like Sapphire Sleep. At Box Drop, You'll schedule a mattress fitting appointment and get one-on-one service directly with Paul, the owner. No middleman. Family-owned, huge savings, no-pressure sales designed to save you time and money. And now Box Drop Syracuse has sectional sofas and love seats as well, with prices designed to fit your budget. Box Drop Syracuse mattress and sofas. Set up your appointment today at boxdropsyracuse.com.
All right, we're back. Manchild Show with Boy Green Digital. Is the Manchild flying solo today? We just wrapped up a few minutes ago an interview with Matt Lombardo, our NFL insider, with some really good insight about the meetings, the NFL meetings out in Arizona, which have been going on all week. Some good thoughts about Darren Mougey, Joe Schoen, and Brandon Beane, and kind of, what does this year's NFL draft mean to those three GMs, and how much, are they, dare I say, waffling a little bit on some sort of proverbial hot seat in terms of how they perform in this year's draft. So I think all three New York GMs are in really interesting positions going into this draft in 2026. And Matt has written about it as well on his Substack, which I highly encourage you to subscribe to and support him as well. He does really, really great work. We also talked a little bit about the Jeremy Fowler report about Jalen Hurts declining changes to the offense last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, and at times excessively audibilizing or changing plays at the line of scrimmage. Again, this is a report by Jeremy Fowler, and now it leads to a whole new discussion about now with another new offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts. This year it'll be Sean Mannion, who's taking over the reins as the OC. Is this going to get better, or is this going to get worse? And then, of course, you have the whole A.J. Brown thing lingering on the fringes here as to what Philadelphia is going to do with A.J. Brown. And are they going to be able to trade him away for other assets, or are they going to end up trying to mend this fence here and keep him in the fold? So that's going to be an interesting thing. So if you missed any of that, again, as soon as this live stream is finished in a little bit, you'll be able to go back and catch up on all that stuff. Some very, very good stuff there. And a very, very interesting thing this morning, in case you missed it, Jerry Jones, who just is always saying interesting things. And, of course, Jerry getting in front of microphones regularly out at the NFL meetings, had a few put in front of him yesterday. And he was asked about, one of the proposals is that the NFL, the owners are proposing that the NFL go to an 18-game schedule here sometime in the near future. At this particular point, the Players Union is against it. Not surprisingly, we sit right now at 17 games, kind of a weird place to be, the odd number where you don't have equal home and away games. And, I think the league eventually will do this, but the owners are obviously trying to push it sooner rather than later, and we'll see if they can or they can't. But Jerry Jones had the quote, "When the ducks quack, you feed them." Okay, this was the analogy or the quote that he gave about the 18-game schedule. Essentially, I'm going to read, hard to get into the mind of Jerry Jones and read what the heck he's thinking. But my thought process here is that he's saying that the fans want it. Therefore, when the fans quack, you feed them, essentially. Okay. When the fans say, I want more, you give them more. They want more. I guess it's like being at the Colosseum in Rome back in the day. They want more death, give them more death. Right. But there will be at some point a breaking point as to how many games an NFL season can have, unless you're going to have, 60-man rosters and you don't have a problem with star players missing multiple games, because that's where it would go if this thing blew up, beyond where it is right now. One more game is, that's always the thing, is they just always say one more game. And this thing was at, I remember when it was at 12, and I remember when it was at 14, I remember when it was at 16, and now it's at 17. It was just like, it's always just like one more game or two more games. What's just one more home game each way? There's just always a way to frame it where it seems like it's just a tiny little bit more. But there probably will be a breaking point physically for the players. The game is more violent than it's ever been, despite various rule changes, various protections being put in place for the players, so on and so forth. It is still and always will be a violent game. It is part of why we love it, frankly. Let's not deny it. It is part of why we love it. Who doesn't love a good collision? Who doesn't love a safety coming across, and whacking a receiver coming across the middle? Who doesn't enjoy that? Who doesn't enjoy a good blindside sack? Come on. I mean, this is why we watch football, at least part of the reason why. So it's a violent game. How much can these modern day players take? That really, to me, is the ultimate question as to how much further this can go. But I think it will get to 18. I don't know when, but I do think in the relatively near future we'll be at 18. An even number of games makes total sense. I could see it eventually way down the road settling at 20, and then maybe that's the cap. Maybe that's where the line is just like, okay, we can't go any further than 20. Then you got to start, thinking about do you need to actually, expand when the season starts or where the season ends? Does that need to be a piece of it if you got out that far to 20 games? I know you can remove preseason games and things of that nature. So would there be a world where there's no preseason games? It's just all practices and scrimmages, and we don't have any, quote, formal games in the preseason. Could be going that way. So we'll see where it all goes, but it is an interesting thing, to say the least. All right, a couple more news and notes before I get out of here today that I wanted to mention. I don't know how many of you out there, I know I am, and I know you know that from watching the show, a diehard New York Met fan. I also pay attention to the Syracuse Mets, who are right here in central New York. But the new look Mets, interesting so far. I think after last night's loss, I think they're 3-2 on the season. Kodai Senga looked pretty good last night, but the Mets didn't win. They got shut out. Again, it is that like doldrums of can the Mets hit at all times. They're playing some young players. Again, they are suffering from the typical, which is often the case, slow start from the hitters. A lot of hitters start slowly in baseball. It's not a great gauge. The month of April, frankly, I know we've already started baseball in March this year. The month of April is not typically a great gauge for how hitters are going to hit. It's almost like a bonus when hitters hit in April. But the Mets, there are some guys, Belge, their rookie, has gotten off to a terribly slow start. Lindor, who always gets off to a slow start, is hitting like $167. What's his name? Bo Bichette, who has come over and was going to help fill the middle of that lineup in the absence of Pete Alonso being jettisoned off. And he's off to a miserable start. And he's like not a guy that strikes out, and he's like striking out at like epic proportions, again, relative to the handful of games that they've played. So Bo Bichette getting booed already by Mets fans just a couple of days ago. So we'll see where all that goes. But it's only April. Nothing is decided in April. And certainly hitters hitting is almost never decided in April, even though there are, of course, guys that get off to good starts. And that's always great to get off to a good start. But a lot of really good hitters in baseball do not typically hit all that well in April, and then they get going as the weather warms up. So we'll see. But I'm interested. The new look Mets are somewhat interesting. At least we got some new faces to look at. Marcus Semien over there. First base is a revolving door, so it's not Pete Alonso every day. Now we got all these different guys. So we'll see where it all goes. And they've got some nice, young, talented pitchers, too. That'll be interesting to watch during the course of the season. So New York Mets, a little bit on that. Tiger Woods, got to talk about that. With the Masters to start next week, and yes, next week is Masters week, folks. As a matter of fact, Paul and I will do everything in our power to round up Jim Roy, our golfing, guru here from Central New York, who has played with some of the greats, including Arnold Palmer and Gary Player, and he was on the PGA Tour for a short period of time. He was on the Senior Tour for a short period of time. His son is currently on the PGA Tour. So Jim Roy, who lives right here in Central New York, is one of our longtime friends. We'll do our usual, talk up the Masters, talk about who we think the favorites are, and share some war stories. And then we always do for all 4 golf majors with Jim. We have him on to talk about that particular major, and then we do just a little mini fantasy draft where myself, Boy Green, and Jim Roy each pick 3 golfers from the field, 9 total golfers we select, and we compete against each other to see who has the best turnout of our 3 guys. And I got a whole scoring system, but if any of our singular guys wins the event, then we win the pool. It's kind of like our Survivor pool in a lot of ways. So we've been doing that for years with Jim Roy. So I'll work on getting him for next week, folks, and we will at least have a little bit of a Masters preview for you before next Thursday when the Masters officially starts. But man, it's always kind of a rite of passage and a rite of spring, when the Masters starts. Now back to Tiger Woods here for a second. There was thoughts after playing in that little simulated golf league event last week that Tiger Woods might he be well enough here to participate in the Masters? Might he be out there at least for the first 2 days and try to make the cut? Well, all that is out the window now. Obviously, anybody that watches the news knows Tiger Woods was in another car accident. He rolled his car over. This is on a road, by the way. I have driven on this road, so I know precisely where this happened, exactly what it looks like. But it's this road that Tiger's house is literally on. There is a singular road that runs right through the island of Jupiter Island, where Tiger lives. Generally speaking, on Jupiter, it's like one single road, just one lane each way, then just grass, no shoulder. And then you've got these gorgeous homes. Most of them have servant entrances and regular entrances. They all have these big iron gates for the most part. And there's beautiful home on the right, beautiful home on the left, beautiful home on the right. And some of them are so far back off the road that all you can do is kind of look up the driveway and maybe see the roof of the house. I mean, is one of the most beautiful, expensive, strips of real estate in the country. It's right up there. I don't know if it's number one, but Jupiter Island is like right up there, like top 5 places in terms of, paying big bucks to live somewhere. And Celine Dion used to live there. Greg Norman lived there for a long time. I think both of them have already moved, but Tiger built his house kind of towards the top of the island. And he's one of, maybe there might be one other home. I think it was Celine Dion's old home, or Tiger might now be the only one. His property, he has property on both sides. So one side is the intercoastal and the other side is the ocean. And his property goes across. So there's a road in the middle, obviously, but he has property on both sides that he owns. So he's like kind of got this whole area blocked off. And Tiger, more than any other person on this strip, if you ever visit it, you ever go down that way, you definitely want to check out Jupiter Island. You could do it by boat, or you could just drive through the island like I did. You just drive literally up this one lane road. It's not a private road. It's a public road. And so I did that. I did both the boat ride and the private road to see these gorgeous homes when I was down there for about a week. I don't know, about 6-7 years ago. And Tiger's house is the one house where Tiger literally brought in trees and bushes and anything outside of the area and built up, like, call it a privacy wall of natural habitat. All right. So you can barely see any of his house. You can barely see any of his property. He has a small, like a 3 or 4 hole golf course right on his property on the one side. And you can't see any of it from the river view. You can see like the tops of a few of the flags, that sit in the holes on the golf course, but you can't really see the holes. And you can see like the tippity roof of his house. So you really can't see into the property. He has made it ultra, ultra super private, I guess, probably to keep the paparazzi out. So he's on the street right up the block from his house. And he, obviously it sounds like, again, the jury's still out here. We don't know, definitively all the details, but it appears that, the guy he's definitely on meds. He's I'm sure taking painkillers and things of that nature, both for the leg injury and now another back surgery, his, I think, 7th back surgery, something like that. So anyway, long story short, Tiger deals with pain. He manages pain like a lot of people in this world do, maybe to an even greater extent. And he, rolled his car over. Seems like he was the pills. Maybe he took too many pills, or he shouldn't have been in the car after taking this particular group of pills or whatever it was. And he's got problems. Luckily and I don't say luckily, smartly, Tiger is well advised, and Tiger seems to still be of good conscience. And so he now has pulled out of the Masters. He's not going to play in the Masters, and he is headed, I guess, for another, stint in, rehab, therapy, whatever you want to call it, to try to work out this issue that is a major issue, not just for Tiger Woods, but like I said, for people across this country that are dealing with pain every day. The pills, you take them, they make you feel better. So then you want more of them, right? Let me take another one. And then they're addictive. So then you become addicted to the pain pills, and now you become a pain pill addict, and that's not a good thing to be. That's just like being an alcoholic or being addicted to any other, drug. I mean, it's just going to take you down a deep, dark road, and it's going to put you in a lot of trouble. And Tiger's been in plenty of it. So he will now step away, not only from golf, which he's kind of already has been stepping away from, but he just needs to just step away from that whole lifestyle and try to get this pain pill situation under control, and he's going to need the, doctors working with him too, limiting what he gets and how he gets them, because, we've seen people go down this deep, dark road before, and it's cost them in many cases their lives. They can't control themselves, and they end up ODing or just getting in an accident of some sort and killing themselves. So, or maybe killing somebody else, which is even worse. So luckily, Tiger, while he hit something, he hit the back end of this trailer that was doing some yard work or something on that street. that was pulling something along. Luckily nobody else got hurt, but he could have hurt somebody badly. So Tiger making a very good decision. Ultimately, that's what I really wanted to say there. The Knicks are skidding. They've now lost 3 games in a row at this very vital point of trying to put themselves in the right place for seeding in the NBA. Luckily, the Cavaliers lost last night as well, so that just kept them, I think, to just a singular game in front of Cleveland, despite the 3 losses. But it's getting dicey, and the Knicks may end up now slipping to the 4 seed if this continues. Definitely, they're not going to now catch the Celtics in the 2 seed, and it does appear that Detroit is going to, without any problem here, hold on to the 1 seed. So it's going to be Detroit 1. It's going to be Boston 2. This is in the East. It's going to be either the Knicks or the Cavs in the 3 and the 4, one way or the other. If the Knicks get the 4, then in the second round, theoretically, assuming they win their first round series, they would get, the top seed Pistons. And if they stay in the 3, then obviously they'd get a chance for a rematch with the Celtics. So we'll see where that all goes. But the bottom line for us Knicks fans is we're playing bad basketball. This team looks bad again. This team looks disjointed again. This team keeps getting off to slow starts. And when they play the better teams, and last night they played the Houston Rockets, who are a pretty solid team in the West, not the best, but among the better teams. They seem to play worse rather than better, which is interesting. So they have not been playing up to the competition, and obviously that's incredibly worrisome if you're a Knicks fan and you're thinking about going deep in the playoffs and maybe even getting to the NBA Finals this year. So I don't know, not feeling good if I'm a Knicks fan. And then finally, the Masters itself. All right, like I said, next week is the Masters. It is for me one of the greatest sports weeks of the year. Maybe part of it is because I'm a Northeasterner. I live up here in central New York and lived in New York City before this. So I've always lived in New York State. And it's that feeling of like we're getting out of the winter and we're getting into the spring. And then you get to turn that thing on television, on our beautiful high definition televisions. And I have a lovely television here in my home. And you can see every blade of grass and the beautiful azaleas and the flowers and all the things that are down there in Augusta. I mean, they obviously keep that place, otherworldly. The amount of money that must be spent on that must be ungodly. But it is a beautiful spectacle to watch on television. And it is the first major of the year. And it just gets us excited about everything. It's not just about golf. It just gets us excited about, that sports is rolling into this real spring/summer season, which really can be a lot of fun. NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, eventually training camps for NFL teams. So pretty cool. I love the month of April, and I particularly love from the Masters week forward. And we're getting it bright and early this year, starting essentially at the back end of the first week of April. So it's going to be a good time. The Masters on CBS, Jim Nantz, and all that piano music coming your way for 4 days: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Love it. I'll be watching. Still got to get there on my bucket list. One of my close friends got there last year. He keeps telling me stories. I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear anymore. So I got to find a way. It's not going to be this year, but I have got to find a way here in the next 5 years. I'm not going to allow it to be bucket list anymore. Like before I die, I don't, by the way, I don't know when I'm going to die. I could die tomorrow. But assuming I live a bit longer, I'm gonna really try to make it a mark to get there in the next 5 years, to get a plan together to try to get there in the next 5 years. One of the challenges is getting the tickets. I'm in the lottery every year. I enter the lottery every year. I've never won. I've had several friends that have won several times in the lottery. I've never won. So I'll keep trying. If not, I don't know. Got to go to the deep, dark black market or whatever it is. Go get them. Go get some. But I'm going to try and do it in the next 5 years. I'm going to find a way to get there. So there you go. All right. Good one, Hep. Hep says, best way to take a nap, turn on the Masters. There is something, Hep. That's and I don't think you mean that detrimentally. Maybe you're not a golf guy. I don't know if you're a golf guy at all. All right. But it is a great way to take a nap because the music is soothing and the announcers, whispering, and it's actually a great afternoon nap. That is a wonderful, wonderful analogy, Hep, and I love it. And I still can nap through pieces of the Masters. And I'm okay with that, by the way. I'm perfectly okay with that. Perfectly okay with that. Nothing like a good nap on a Masters afternoon. I like that. I like that very much. Now, I'm not going to nap on Sunday when they're on the back nine, no matter how soft the announcers are speaking. But a nap in round 1, round 2, even part of moving day on day 3, I'm fine. I can take a little nap there. That's no problem. I can miss a few shots. By the way, if you go to masters, I think it's masters.org. It's not .com. I think it's masters.org. I could be wrong about that. But it's easy enough to look it up. They every year now during the tournament, you can get every shot of every player. So, like, if you have a player that you're rooting for and they're not on the leaderboard, but you want to see how they're playing, you literally can go to their website and watch every shot. Okay, they literally take and they get a snippet of every shot, and you can watch it, at your leisure, which is a really nice feature. So, they do go all out on that website to give you as much content as possible. So, very, very cool stuff. All right, so there you go. All right, so Masters coming up. All right, meetings, NFL meetings wrapping up the end of this week. But we'll have a busy, busy week for you in terms of content. Lots of really cool things. Jets, Giants, and Bills are all on tap. Ed Valentine is back with us this week. Jake Asman will be joining Paul tomorrow. I'm not going to be there for the Jake Asman interview tomorrow, so Paul will fly solo on that one. But we've got Ed Valentine. We've got Anthony Prohaska back on the beam to talk all things Buffalo Bills this week. We will have Sean Devaney. We'll get into this Knicks losing skid. Maybe they'll have won a game before Friday. I think they play again today. I hate if I have to roll into that interview with Devaney and the Mets. The Knicks have lost 4 in a row. It's going to be very painful dealing with both him and Boy Green in the same interview. But I'll be there regardless. So that's coming up on Friday. And Neil Adler, no music with Neil this week, although he might demand some. But it'll be all Syracuse basketball talk, including a recap of the Jerry McNamara press conference, and then how is Jerry doing right now as he's trying to hit the ground running with that Syracuse basketball roster. So that's coming on Friday. All right. So all of that. What a wonderful, wonderful week of content. Want to thank every one of you. For those that are already subscribed, thanks for hitting that subscribe button. If you're not, you're sitting in the room right now, take a second and hit the subscribe button. Again, I'll throw it up here real quick. If you're not on our channel, you can jump over to our channel. That's the channel you need to subscribe to, youtube.com/@MC Show Digital. And if you are a subscriber, you can get into our monthly raffle. One last time before I say goodbye, autograph Dan Aykroyd harmonica, both the case and the harmonica itself are autographed. And then this beautiful Sports Illustrated magazine from 2003 when Syracuse won the national championship in pristine condition. You can put it in a frame and get it autographed if you want and make it a collector's item for yourself, but a fabulous, fabulous little collector's item for the Syracuse basketball fan, or for the college basketball fan for that matter. Our only national championship in 2003 here in Central New York. Love it. Love it. We love it. All right, so all of that, if you, again, become a member, 2 automatic raffle tickets, super chats, super stickers, all right? And if you go higher on the membership levels, you can get bonus tickets, 5 for a diehard member, 10 for a Hall of Fame member. So all of that's available to you. We will do that drawing, as the scrolling ticker below says, on the 22nd of April. All right, everybody, thanks for being here today. Really do appreciate it. We'll see you with tons of content the rest of this week. And don't forget, tonight, you see my little buff right here, Survivor, Season 50, Episode 6. Quick little programming note for those of you that are going to tune into Survivor tonight and then come and join us for the recap show after the Survivor show tonight, which we do every Wednesday night right after the show ends. Brett LaBelle will be in the fold again, our cop from Boston who was on the island during the Millennials versus Gen X season. So that's all a go for tonight. Here's something to know in terms of a programming note. Number 1. All right. Survivor is a 2-hour episode tonight. So it's typically an hour and a half and ends at 9:30. Tonight it goes to 10 o'clock. It's a 2-hour special episode. So there's a little bit more content for Survivor tonight. Also, couple that with tonight in the middle of Survivor, President Trump has scheduled an address to the country, probably to talk about the Iranian war and some other little tidbits. Okay. So that's going to interrupt Survivor, and that's going to make Survivor probably finish up closer to 10:30. So I would expect the president to pop in there probably for 20 minutes or a half hour in the middle of Survivor. So Survivor watchers, you're going to get interrupted. Trump's going to come on for probably about a half hour, and then they'll go back to Survivor, and then we still will have the post-game show, the recap show, right after Survivor wraps up. So probably our ETA tonight for the wrap-up show is probably going to be sometime around 10:30 this evening. So if you are a watcher of the recap show and you want to join us, just keep that in mind. 2-hour episode, plus the president's address. Probably going to make that whole thing about 2.5 hours. So I would expect us, around 10:30ish. That's my best estimate. I think that's probably a reasonable estimate for you if you're going to join us tonight live. So that's when we're live again tonight, right around 10:30. All right, folks, I will see you then. Thanks for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Peace out. Thanks for joining.